And over spring break, I developed this PowerPoint, and I really pulled it off of a Microsoft Learning document. And so if you went out to Google and you did a did a search for Microsoft PowerShell Learning, you would find this, and we'll actually get onto it and the next time we meet, because we won't have time to get onto the site that I'm referring to. And so I actually have 2 laptops running today, and the other laptop is I actually have that Microsoft Learning doc up here, so I don't forget anything that I want to mention. Okay, so quick introduction. PowerShell is a command line shell and a scripting language all in one. It's very powerful. Think along the lines of a Linux bash shell, right? In Linux, you can, on the shell, you can do many different things. You can run commands, you can do scripting. Very powerful. This is basically Windows version of that. It was initially designed as a task engine to use commandlets to wrap tasks. What we know about the command line is you can typically do things much quicker, right? Don't get me wrong. I love my GUI. I love being able to, right-click on things and see the graphical output. It's easier for me to understand. If I want to go and create a user in Active Directory on a computer, being able to go through the GUI and do that is great. It works awesome. However, if I need to create 10, 20, 30 users at a time, or do something over and over and over again, I cannot reuse my clicks. I can reuse my commands. I can create a script and reuse that over and over. So the GUI doesn't scale well, where the command prompt PowerShell does. And so that's really why it was developed, is let's create something that we can use to automate tasks. One of the beauties of PowerShell is it can be run locally, so I can run it right on my laptop, right on my server, or I can run it remotely on a machine. And this has actually saved me a few times when I've been troubleshooting issues or trying to fix machines, is I can do PS remoting, PowerShell remoting, remote into a machine on the network and run PowerShell commands even if I'm not on the machine itself. So a little bit more about PowerShell. What is PowerShell? So it consists of 2 parts. We have a command line shell, and we also have a scripting language. Again, it did start out as a framework to automate administrative tasks, but it's really completely evolved from there and kind of taken on a life of its own. Very powerful here. Some features that we're going to focus on to get us learning about PowerShell is the built-in help system. We'll talk about the pipeline, which makes PowerShell more powerful because we can string command lists together and scripts together, and also aliases. And aliases make using commandlets and navigation typically easier for us. Okay, it operates on objects over text. Because of this, you can spend less time formatting and extracting. And so this is what I mean by an object. If I go to my command prompt and I type in ipconfig, this is my command prompt, not PowerShell. This output is simply just this, it's output, it's text. If I want to extract data from this or specific values from this, I'm essentially probably copying and pasting right out of the terminal here. It's hard for me to extract data, manipulate data from this. However, in PowerShell, your output is not just the output. It's actually stored as an object. And that object contains parameters and variables in different columns and headings, and we'll see some of that today. And I can manipulate the data much easier. I can extract the data much easier. I can take the data and pipe it into another command. It's much more powerful. And my note on what an object is actually on one slide, so let me find that. So objects, this goes back to object-oriented programming, which Java is if you guys took Java. is objects are essentially known quantities of something that programming languages can use, interact with, perform computations, and transforms on. In general, or on and in general consume. Technically, an object is simply the programmatic representation of anything. So again, instead of just getting just text output like I do in the command prompt in PowerShell, I can take that output and it's stored as an object and I can manipulate it further, I can dive into it further, I can pipe it into other commands. PowerShell has what are known as commandlets. Commandlets take object input and return object output. The core commandlets in PowerShell are built in .NET Core and are open source. So that is, again, one of the beauties of PowerShell is many of the commandlets are open source, which means that you can freely download them, freely alter them, and make them your own if you want. There are many types of commands besides commandlets available in PowerShell, which makes it different than the CLI. It has native executables, it has those commandlets, functions, scripts, and also aliases. We'll kind of get into all these as we go through this. Okay, installation. This is something that I actually learned as I was preparing for this, is that PowerShell can be installed on Linux and Mac OS and older versions of Windows too. I knew about the older versions, but I guess I didn't realize you could install it on Linux. For us, it's easy. We're all Windows users in here, I think. I have a couple of Linux users that use Linux for their desktop, but it is pre-installed. Windows 8 or later became pre-installed. Does anybody know the latest version? What the latest version is by chance? It's version 7, and so my version on my machine, actually I might have updated it yesterday, but I got a relatively new machine, maybe a month or two old here only, and when I checked my version, I was only on version 5.1. So version 7 is out there, and we all are going to update to version 7. If you want to install it on Linux or Mac or other operating systems, I have a link here that pulls up a Microsoft doc on how to install it on those other OSs. So going back to the assignment, I mentioned that there are Linux machines within our environment. So if you want to use PowerShell on Linux, or if you got a Mac, that'd be kind of cool. I've never seen that. If you want to incorporate a different OS into your project, you have that flexibility. PowerShell extension for Visual Studio Code. I want everybody to install this. What this is going to do for you is it's going to install Visual Studio Code, and it's going to add an extension for PowerShell. The extension not only lets you run commands, but also helps you with snippets, code completion, and syntax highlighting. So first I'm just going to pull up PowerShell. And we've all seen Windows PowerShell, right? Basically, you get your command prompt here. Is that kicking out a signal that's bugging you? So this is basically just your command prompt, right? There's no true flexibility in here to save scripts and those sorts of things. So this is why I'm recommending that we install the Visual Studio Code. And then inside of Visual Studio Code, you can add the extension for PowerShell. So I actually have it pulled up right now, but within Visual Studio, I can run PowerShell right here. So get file hash, and I can run my PowerShell commands right through Visual Studio Code. I can also come up and I can create files. Oops, I didn't want to do that. And create scripts, and I can type out all my syntax for my scripts, and it can help with code completion and all those different things. I can save them as a PowerShell script, and it just gives you more, I guess, flexibility and capability if you start working with PowerShell through here. for most of what we'll do over the course of the next couple of days, though, we'll do right through just the plain old PowerShell. Okay, updating PowerShell. If you need to update PowerShell, which you probably should, there's a few different ways to do it. The first way is to run this command. You can just copy and paste it right into PowerShell. What it's actually going to do for you is download an MSI and then install that MSI kind of in the background. You can go get the graphical installer, the MSI installer, through GitHub here. Your installer, as you're installing it, will look like this. You can also use Chocolatey. This could be something you could incorporate into your project as well. Chocolatey is basically Windows version of a repository. So in Linux, you know, some of your repositories, what do you do, apt-get and RPM and all those different packages. Probably sound like an idiot because I don't know what Linux is. But Chocolatey is kind of the same version of that. So I just want to sidebar real quick into Chocolatey. I think it's something you guys might get into with your Linux background. So Chocolatey is the package manager for Windows. You can install this, and then through PowerShell, you have the ability to add all of these different packages. So once Chocolatey is installed, if I want Adobe Reader, instead of having to go to adobe.com and download the file and install it, I can just do a Choco install Adobe Reader. Downloads, installs it right through PowerShell. Flash Player, Google Chrome. I mean, there's a huge list here. There's pages and pages of applications that you can install through the command prompt. So where this might come in handy, as I mentioned in the scenario, you're getting overwhelmed with day-to-day tasks. So maybe you're setting up new computers, and new computers typically have a subset of applications that users need, right? So when we get new computers, maybe we put Adobe Reader on there, and Chrome, and Firefox, and a whole slew of applications. Can you create a script that utilizes Chocolatey to do all that stuff for you, to automate that initial setup of the computer? I think that would be an excellent avenue for that project, for that first objective. So that's Chocolatey. I'm going to go ahead and update my PowerShell. I can't remember if I did this already, but to show you this. Control-C you have to use, and then once you right-click in PowerShell, it dumps it in there. Okay, and like I said, what it's really doing is downloading the MSI, and I'm using the MSI. I guess it's not really through PowerShell, but PowerShell initiated it here for me. And so I'm getting PowerShell 7. That is the latest version. If you want to know which version you have, probably should have mentioned that first. It is PS version table, I think. Let me find if it is again. I'm drawing a blank. PS version table. Yeah, that's something like that. PS. Oh, $sign PS version table. That's fine. $sign PS version table. Turn green. Right command. Okay, so currently I'm at version 5.1. It's backwards compatible with 1, 2, 3, and 4, the desktop edition. So again, I'm advocating that you guys all update to version 7 and you install the Visual Studio code and the extension for Visual Studio Code. So I'll let that update in the background. Okay, commandlets. Commandlet is something that's developed in .NET or .NET core, like I mentioned before, and it's invoked as a command within PowerShell. There are thousands of commands available in your PowerShell installation. The challenge really lies in, what is available, what are they, what do they do, how can I use them, all these different things. So that's going to be kind of the focus of our first lesson here with PowerShell, is discovering, what's available, what's out there, how do I use them, those sorts of things. What I tend to do is, go to Google, and I want a PowerShell command that does X. Okay, that's fine, it's great, it works awesome, it's tried and true. But what we'll find out is we can actually use PowerShell itself to do a lot of the discovery and find commands and commandlets and things that I'm looking for, and also find examples and how to set them up, how to run them, and those sorts of things. So a commandlet follows a very specific naming convention, and this is important to understand. The naming convention is a verb-noun naming standard. This pattern helps us understand what they do and how to search for them in terms of our commandlets. It also helps commandlet developers create consistent names. So first we're going to take a look at the verb. So if I go to my command prompt, command prompt with PowerShell, if I go to PowerShell and I type in get verb, this is going to show me all of the PowerShell commandlets and their verbs. I shouldn't say commandlet. It will show me all of the verbs available for commandlets. So verbs available for commandlets are these: adding, clearing, closing, entering, exiting, formatting, removing, renaming, resizing, selecting, backing up, converting, expanding. So if I know I want to copy something, I can do a search for commandlets that have the verb of copy. If I know that I want to install something, I can do a search for commandlets that will install something. So these are all the available verbs. These are our actions. The commandlet's going to perform some sort of action for me. Okay? Finish up this install here quick. I'm going to close PowerShell. I'm going to open it back up. I'm going to do my $PS version table and see where I'm at now. Tab key works. Up down arrow keys work as well, just like Linux and the Cisco command prompt. So I'm still at version 7. I don't know if I need to restart, which maybe I do. But we're going to try to get to version 7. I'm not going to worry about that at this point. The noun portion we'll get to here in just a minute, but the noun portion tells you what you're acting on. So one of the commands that we've probably run before is get file hash. So get is the verb. I want to get something. And what do I want to get? Well, I want to get a file hash. That's my noun. That's what I'm trying to perform, is a file hash function. So we have that verb-noun syntax. There are 3 core commandlets that are going to help us when we're learning PowerShell and trying to figure out what the heck is available. The first is a get command, so my verb, get, my noun, command. What am I trying to get? I'm trying to get commands. So if I do a get command, this lists all of the available commandlets on your system. Filtering is going to be key, because if I run that again here, get command, it's going to run for a while. This is showing me all of the PowerShell commandlets that are available. And it's still running, and it's still running. And these are ones that are just pre-installed with Windows 10 here. and I can go out and I can get, more, freely download these, and it's still going. So I'm into set now. Now I'm start. Now I'm on update. Adding, converting. Here's commandlets. Okay, I can control C this if I want to stop it. But I'll just let it run to highlight my point here. Let's stop now. There are thousands of commandlets. So the challenge lies in, well, what the heck is available? And how do I work with them? And how do I even find what I'm looking for here? I can't just sift through this list, right? It just becomes too much. So that's one of the core commandlets that we'll dive into. Get help is another one. Get help, it invokes a built-in help system. You guys are familiar with the man pages in Linux. It's pretty much the same thing. In fact, you can use man if you want as an alias to get into the help. You can also use the alias of help. So an alias just invokes the commandlet for me. So I've been working with file hash. If I don't know how to use it, I can type in get-help, and I want to get help for get file hash. And so here is the manual or the help for get file hash. I can use an alias of just help if I want. And actually, Microsoft recommends you use the alias of help because it makes it a little bit easier to read, they say, in certain circumstances. Or I can actually even use the alias of man, because sometimes we're used to Linux, and that works as well. So there's different aliases in here. Does anybody know how to list the directory contents in Windows? What is in Linux? If you want to view your directory contents.
LS.
LS. Well, in Windows, it's dir, directory.
I hate that so much.
I do too. Well, they built in the alias of ls, so it's kind of nice. There's some cross uses here, where if you're used to Linux and you type in an ls and those different things, a lot of times it actually works for you. So that is nice as well. Get member. Get member is a little bit more difficult to understand. This is something we'll have to kind of just dive into to see how it works. But get member, when you call a command, the response is an object that contains many properties. Get member will allow you to drill down into that response and learn more about it. So for example, again, with like ipconfig, there's a lot more to that ipconfig. There's different adapters, different IP addresses. I can actually dive into that output using get member and pull out pieces, pull out things that I'm looking for specifically. You'll have a better idea after we get into it here. Let's focus on get command first. So again, get command lists every single command on your system. And I just ran it, and ran for a long time. There's thousands of commandlets available. So we need to get into the habit of filtering. There's a couple different ways to filter. Either filtering on the verb, in this case it's get, or filtering on the noun, in this case it's command. Okay? So some flags you can use to filter is either going to be the dash noun or the dash verb. In this example here, the dash noun flag targets the part of the command name that's related to the noun. That is, it targets everything after the hyphen. So here's an example. I'm going to run this in just a second. Get command dash noun, and the noun I'm going to look for is file. So if I want to see all of the commandlets that deal with files, or commandlets that I can run to work with files, I can run this, and that's what I'm going to do right now. Oops. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. We'll see that. I'll paste it into PowerShell. Okay, so I'm doing a get command for the noun of file. So all these have to do with working with a file, and they actually start with a file. So I have different verbs here. I have write, block, clear, debug, get, grant, new, remove. You guys can see all of the different verbs. And then my nouns, anything that starts with file. You guys know wildcards. I don't think I have to go over that. Anything that starts with file and ends with anything. So file system cache, file share access, file integrity, file share. If I change my wildcard to the beginning, start with anything, end with file, right? Here are some more things that I can do that have to do with files. Some of them are profiles. How about if I don't have any wildcard? There's two commands that specifically have file in them. Out is the verb, and then file. Unblock is the verb, and then files. Unblocking a file or outing a file. I don't know what those do, so then I can use my get help on those and get a little idea of what those are doing. Okay, I can also filter on verbs. So I can use a hit command dash verb, and I want to see all of the commands that have to do with the verb of copy. Okay, I can copy an item. I can copy a net IPsec rule. How about the verbs of get? There's a lot of get commands. There's a big long list of commandlets that have to do with get. So being able to filter on either the verb or the noun can help you find what you're looking for in PowerShell. Let's talk a little bit about the get help. Again, the get help is very similar to your man pages in Linux. You use the syntax of get help and then the name of the command you're getting help for. So get help dash name get file hash. That's going to go out and grab the help files for the file hash. Something to keep in mind is that the help system must be updated. So I just updated to PowerShell 7. I also need to update the help files. So I should go out here and I should run, I have to do Control-C, I should run the update for my help as well, because new versions of PowerShell are going to bring in new commandlets. So I can update my help. This is going to go out, a little slow. This is going to go out and it's going to update my help files. Okay. I'll let that run. When you run help on a command, it's going to be broken down into some sections. We have the name, the syntax, the aliases, the remarks, and the parameters. And again, instead of just using get help, you can use help, you can use man as well. So I'm going to do a help on update-help. And so update-help is the name of the command. Here's the syntax. Here is some more syntax. There are no aliases for update help. And then there are some commands here. One thing you can add to any help command is at the end you can tack on a dash online. And so what that will do is it will actually go out to the Microsoft documentation, automatically pull up a browser window for you, and show me the update help. So that is nice. There are some other flags you can run or filters that you can tack on to the get help. You have the get help full, which will return all of the details. Get help detailed, get help examples, get help online, which I just did, and get help parameter. The examples one is nice. Not every single one contains examples. Let's see if this one does. Not. But if there are examples on how to run that commandlet, they'll be right here. So I said, I like to typically Google things. And so I'll Google, how do I run file hash? Or how do I run, this PowerShell command? Well, I could probably find examples right through PowerShell by doing the help and tacking on the dash examples. So this is a good slide here to maybe just take note of as you're going through help. If you're looking for something specific or examples, you just want to pull up automatically the online man page, as I'm calling them. Microsoft calls them learning documents. But the online man page, just tack on the dash online and we'll pull it up for you. Okay, get member. So remember, the output of a command within PowerShell is stored as an object. It is not the entire story. There is more to it, and I'll try to give you an example here in just a second. Get member lets you inspect the object to learn even more. It's meant to be piped on top of a command so that you can filter the example. So you can filter the output even further. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to type in get process. Get process is going to show me all the processes that I have running on my system. And there's a huge list of processes, right? I got all these processes running on my system right now. It's a huge list, actually. Anything from Teams to I got PowerShell running, and the registry is running. I got my PAN Global Protect running. There's PowerPoint. So every single process running on my machine, this returns. Okay, I'm going to just pull out a specific process, and I'll pick on, let's pick on PowerPoint here. Okay, and so that's this get process dash name and then the name of the process. Get process dash name, and then it was power PNT. Yep. Okay, this is the output it gives me. The output it gives me is the process name. I'm kind of reading this right to left. Process name is PowerPoint. The ID is 9496. I don't know what the heck SI is. CPU per second or cycles, I'm not quite sure what that is. WS, I have no idea. PM, I have no idea. NPM, I have no idea. Handles, 2037. Some of this stuff, I don't even know what the heck it is. But this is the information it's giving me about PowerPoint. Well, this is the information it's actually outputting about PowerPoint. It's actually grabbing and storing much more information about PowerPoint. And so this is where the get member comes in handy. So if I take this get process dash name PowerPoint and I pipe that, I'm basically taking this output and I'm piping it into get member. This is all of the information it's getting about the process. It's getting information about when that process started up. It didn't display it to me, but it's there, and I can pull it out if I want. It's getting information about when it started, about the amount of virtual memory size it's using, CPU information, the path to that process. Again, there's a huge list. It grabbed all this information. It stored it as an object. Now, what did it display to me? Again, almost nothing compared to all the information that is available that it actually did grab. And so I didn't know what some of this stuff is, right? Like PMK, NPMK. Well, I can now come in here and I can see what some of that is. So NPM is non-page system memory size. That's what that is. What was the other one I didn't know? SI. SI is the session ID. WS is the working set 64. So get member is going to, again, dive deeper into the output other than what I'm being displayed. And that is the beauty of PowerShell. It's not just that text output like I see with the command prompt. It's actually an object that I can filter, manipulate, store, do whatever I want with further. Okay? I can take this one step further if I want, and I can start to grab parameters out of here. So if I do the get member, which I just ran, run it again here. It tells me that I'm looking at a system.diagnostic.process. I'm looking at a process. Okay, so I did a get process, The name is PowerPoint. You can pick whatever process you want, and I'm getting members. Well, it's telling me that this is a process type name here. So now I get to thinking, well, what else can I do with processes? Okay. Well, I could use that get command to now further look on the parameter type of process. Okay, so I know, okay, I'm working with the process. What else could I do with this process? So now I could do a get command. Parameter type. Dash parameter type. And the type I want to look for is process. Okay, here's 6, 7 more commandlets that I can do with processes. I can debug my processes. I can get processes. I can stop processes. I can wait. Remember your wildcards here. Pretty much getting the same thing. There's some more for them. Restarting services, resuming services, setting services. Starting to get a little bit more information. So I can start to dig deeper into the PowerShell system here and start to figure out different commands and things that I can run. Another thing you can do with getMember is starting to select objects. So let me go back here real quick. Let me run this getMember again on my process. And so I'm starting to see different things in here. I'm seeing names. I'm seeing member types. I'm seeing definitions. If I just want to pull the names or just the member types or a combination of any of these, I can pipe that into the select object. The select object expects a comma or an asterisk. So let me run this here for you. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm getting the process. I'm getting PowerPoint. I'm getting all of the members or the pieces of the PowerPoint. But I just want to return, not all of this, I just want to return the name. Okay, so now I'm just returning the name. Maybe I want to get the name and definition. So now I'm returning the name and the definition. So again, this allows you to filter a little bit more into the output. Okay? So I'm actually going to stop there for today. The next time we come back, so we're going to run out of time, is we're going to try some of these. I've done a few, but there's an exercise from the Microsoft doc that we'll run through and kind of reinforce what we've talked about. So again, 3 main command lists to get us started. We have the get command to see what's available. We can filter that based on verb and noun. We have the get help. So once we find a command, we can figure out what the heck it does and the syntax of it. And then the get member, which allows us to, once we run a command and we have that object or that output, dive into it further, see what else is available, how else can we filter on it, how else can we take that output, pipe it into another command or a script.